And so again, there's been a local constitutional coup from California. And you may have noticed in the Trump administration, they're taking strong action against DEI and trans rights and things like this. And it's actually the right thing to do. And the reason for that is, and I'm sure Trump knows it, the justices on the Supreme Court also did know it very well. And hopefully Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, knows, and you'll learn more about her later. But the big deal is that all these quote unquote rights emanate from Section 5 of the non existent 14th War Amendment. And that's what we can't have. That's been the biggest problem we've had, and there's a lot more to it that you'll learn. Send me an email, youwinnincourt@gmail.com, as to how, when, and why we got here and what we have to do to get out, that you can teach your children and your posterity a priceless gift. If they're not teaching anywhere in the mandatory public education system today, and they weren't 60 odd years ago when I was in school outside of Washington, D.C. either. But you're going to learn the truth there, and it's going to set you free. But the big deal with that amendment, not only it doesn't exist, it never did. It was contemporaneously ruled unconstitutional by the Supreme Court, but they weren't allowed to announce the opinion. But the really big deal is that 14th Amendment and all the amendments since, and it includes the 13th Amendment too. Everybody loves that slavery amendment, despite the fact we're all slaves today. All of those amendments are based on federal, regional, martial law rules. That's why you see even pictures of Trump with the flags in the background, and they've been pretty careful about it. But the flags in the background, the United States flag, if you notice carefully at times, you'll see it has a gold fringe around it. That's a military standard. But you're not in the army, are you? How in the world does the commander in chief of the armed forces control you? We're supposed to be members of a sovereign, independent state. Just sanguineous citizens by blood, not by soil. And yes, that's free, white, male, 21, no apologies. But we get back to that government, federated republican form of government of defined and limited powers. And now it just changes things almost overnight. Because now all these corporations that exist or think they exist don't exist, and they can't come into our judicial courts in any event. And now everybody is going to have rights, enforceable rights, not civil rights. And most of the governing will be done not only on the state level, but at the local level, at the county and city level, where it's a lot easier to get involved and keep control of, especially education. And that's one reason why one of the first things Trump did was to get rid of the Federal Department of Education, for which there isn't 1 ounce of support in any of the 6 articles of the Constitution for the United States. All they're teaching them is federal, regional, martial law rules, trans rights, all this crap. And now you get in there, and a 9-year-old kid is confident to say, geez, I was born a girl, but I'm a boy. God made a mistake. What? He's not used to doing that, is he? And yet, at the age of 9, these people are confident to make that decision, and sometimes get the state and the schools to step in and help them get transgender medical treatment, for crying out loud, which raises the questions of who the hell kids are these anyway and why. It's not supposed to work that way. And even better or worse, depending on your perspective, when they turn 18, now all of a sudden they're incompetent in every ground and in every way, except for every 2 or 4 years on election day. Give me a fucking break. Election day. But what they think the relationship is in the de facto national socialist government, to put it politely, is guardian and ward. To put it more familiarly, master and slave. That 14th Amendment converted everybody, from having constitutional rights, creator endowed rights ensured by the man above, to where it's all government granted privileges now. And that's those New York banksters for you. That was the total agenda. And it goes all the way back at least to the Bank of England in 1695 and probably all the way back, to the city of London and Vatican City 2,000 years ago. You'll learn more about that. Send me an email, youwinnincourt@gmail.com. And I put a lot of things together here that when you see it, and it may not register the first time, and it didn't for me. It took me a while to get there too. I was ignorant, maybe the league leader of ignorance back in the day when I came out of school. But what did I do? Age of 19. I go down to the Marine Corps and volunteer in the Marine Corps at the height of the head offensive in the Vietnam War. Didn't know anything. Mom, bless her heart, put a curse on the Marines and said, "You ain't getting them." And sure enough, I go over to Fort Holabird on the way to South Carolina, and I never made it because the sergeant took one look at me and said, "If you lose your glasses, how will you know who to shoot?" I didn't have the answer then like I do now. I would have said, "No problem. Give me an M16, point me back down to Washington, D.C., the White House, landslide, Lyndon Johnson. I'll take care of it." And if you don't know, this bastard and Kennedy was assassinated, by the way, on a Friday. Monday morning, he reverses Kennedy's executive order, taking us out of Vietnam and putting us back into it. That's the agenda of the New York bankers, and you'll learn more about that too and what it means, for our freedom and our creator endowed inalienable rights. Send me an email, youwinnincourt@gmail.com, and you'll learn a lot more about all of this and my modestly priced constitutional defense document packets where we say it with attitude and with authority. And among other things, by the way, you get complimentary updates on all documents, and there's been a lot of those of late. Complimentary phone consultations to help get you up to speed, complimentary Zoom appearance at a court hearing, and more complimentary things too. You get a lot that goes with it because I know it's going to take a little while to get you up to speed, and I want to work with you and help you to see it and see it for what it really is. Black is literally white here. And that's what's exciting. We can get it back if we know what we're doing, when to do it, and how to do it. And among other things, I've gotten a multi-million-dollar federal default judgment in an eviction case because I knew exactly what I was doing. And maybe the biggest win in the history of the U.S. Supreme Court, albeit unofficially, in my Midwest case, where we set a 750 unopposed paid record against the jurisdiction of the trial court, and we have acted treason just like you will, all the way from the trial court to the governor's office. And I contacted the justices, and they got involved because I had a 52-page unopposed writ of habeas corpus, which you'll get as part of my constitutional defense document packet. It was denied by a clerk of court because it wasn't on the right fucking form. We don't need forms. We don't need statutes. You're going to learn all about that. Send me an email, youwinnincourt@gmail.com. We own the place. We need to start acting like it. That's what those racist framers did for us back in the day. Set up the best government ever made. And no, it wasn't perfect. I get that. But if we get back to that point in time, we can make changes, do it right, and help keep up with the modern era, but consistent with our creator endowed inalienable rights. If we just do that, so much changes for the better. It's what I was put here to do. I'm convinced of it. I have some divine gifts that are just hard to describe. It's a lot more than mere memory, as you will learn. And we're never going to see a jury one way or the other because they get me talking to a jury like I'm talking to you right now. They won't even have to go in the back room to deliberate. They're going to know within about 90 seconds who the hell knows the law and cares about it and who doesn't. And as quickly as I close in my South Carolina case 9 years ago, which I now have currently before officials in Washington, D.C. for redress of grievance, I shut the place down in 90 seconds flat. And by the way, that case, I got arrested in a library out here, which is hard to do. But I did. I got hauled across country. It took 2 months to get from A to B on 4 different federal unmarked military aircraft, which I could get on without any slave ID, by the way. And I finally get there, and they read the charges, and there I am in a red jail suit, handcuffed hand and foot. And the judge said, practicing law without a license. I laughed. Said the problem with that is I don't practice it. I get it right the first time. The judge, who turned out to be one of the good ones, then said, well, we have to check you out to be sure you're competent to represent yourself. If I could have thrown up my hands, oh, barf at it, Judge. But let it be California 422 US 806. The problem with that is the Supreme Court ruled in Darren v. Baltimore, 7 Peters 243, 1828, the Bill of Rights doesn't apply to the states. Shut the place up in 90 seconds. I was there 4 more months, but I never heard anything from any of these bastards in Columbia because they didn't know what to do with me, and they were right. And that's what I can teach you. And it's just amazing when you have that kind of knowledge. It's just a divine gift that I have, and it's what I was put here to do, is to help you and help you help your children and your posterity get out from under here and end this mess. And we have control of the White House now, the House, the Senate, and the U.S. Supreme Court. And the court we may have for 10 or 12 years, and maybe longer, pending further developments. I'll be talking about that later. But it's exciting. We can really get in there and do this and get it done. And wow, it's just great. And to be my age, I'm kind of old now, but I've got, I think, 8 or 10 or 12 good years. And pneumonia's going to get me, by the way. I already know what it is down the road. But to be this excited and have this life at this time of life, I just wish I had been taught in 9th and 10th grade outside of Washington, D.C. all those years ago. I've been doing it then. But it's just all great news for you. So send me an email, youwinnincourt@gmail.com. Remember to subscribe, tell your friends, like the videos, get the word out. The sooner we take these bastards on, the quicker we get out from under and get back to where you have rights secured by the Constitution. Thank you.